Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of Dude, you gotta listen to this. Checking out a band whose name I can't pronounce, album I can't pronounce, and track title I can't pronounce. So I'm going to turn it over to Google Translate. The band is
Einstürzende Neubauten.
And the name of the song is
Die Befindlichkeit des Landes.
So that's what we're checking out today. Let's dive into this. Oh, I apologize. The album I can pronounce. That is in English. Nothing else is though. Let's dive into this track and see what's going on.
Über dem Narbengelände das langsam verschwindet. So nur Phantomschmerz bleibt. Es dringt kaum
Some
herein
massive bass tone.
aus der roten Infobox.
It's mixed with a bunch of industrial sounds though.
Und in den Gräbern wird
It's
leise
very
rotiert.
sad melody.
Alles nur künftige Ruinen, Material für die nächste Schicht. Melancholia. Melancholia.
Kind of pushing into an Eerie territory.
Melancholia schwebt über der neuen Stadt und über dem Land.
That slightly detuned toy piano sound is not helping to escape from that eeriness.
Aus Beton. Über den heimlichen Bunkeranlagen, die nicht wegzukriegen sind. Marlene, go home. Auch über den Marlene Dietrichplatz.
Very spacious too.
Die neuen Tempel haben schon Risse. Künftige Ruinen. Einst wächst Gras auch über diese Stadt. Über ihre letzte Schicht. Melancholia.
Interesting little diversion there.
Melancholia, mon cher. Melancholia schwebt über der neuen Stadt und über dem Land.
Alright, we got something new here.
Von den Jets zur Übung zerflogen. ausgebreitete Schwingen.
And it does provide some levity to that overwhelming, ominous sound that's been prevalent throughout the track.
Starren Blicks. In Richtung Trümmer. Hinter ihr die Zukunft aufgetürmt. Steigt sie langsam immer höher. Übersieht letztendlich das ganze Land. Was ist die Befindlichkeit des Landes? 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 Mela, 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 Mela.
Okay. I don't know that this is going to be a very strong analysis. We'll go over what I heard and we'll see if I can make any connections while I'm verbalizing my thoughts, but yeah, I don't really think I have a strong grasp as far as knowing what any of this means or represents. I'll be really curious if I am anywhere near close to the lyrics on this one. And that's if there even is any sort of thematic synergy between the lyrics and the music. There might not be anyways. So I guess let's just dive into this. The song is atmospheric, really hyper focused on that. We have a majority of this song presenting drum and bass, where the bass is a rhythmic groove. Boo-doop, 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 boo-doop. The wasn't the bass. I just don't like silence, so I have to like add a syncopated idea so you can feel whatever. That's just a personal thing, I suppose. That keeps us driving through a majority of the track. Now, this bass tone is massive. It is a very large sound, and it takes up a vast amount of the sound sphere. Beyond that, we have what I said drums, but really it's the percussion. It's very industrial. I don't think any of this is a traditional drum kit. If it is, my guess is going to be that there's triggers on it in order to fire off something from a library, because I've never heard a drum kit sound like any of this before. But the thing is that many of these sounds are utilized in ways that I can hear in a regular drum kit. I can certainly hear snare hits. I can hear cymbal ideas. I can hear an opening and closing of a hi-hat even at times. There is an analogy from the sounds that we hear to traditional drum kit ideas within the realms of modern mainstream music and the way that drum kits are typically utilized today and have been utilized over the past, like, I don't know, 70 years maybe more. Actually, definitely more, because jazz is older than the 50s, so yeah, the last century at least of drum kit usage can be felt here, just not with the typical timbres. So that's kind of neat. We can find familiar writing, but unfamiliar sounds. Unless you listen to a lot of industrial music, and then I suppose these are very familiar sounds. Parts of it reminded me of stuff like Stomp and Blue Man Group, and just a lot of industrial bands that use non-traditional percussion and non-traditional sounds and things as percussion instruments. That makes up a majority of this track. That is our foundation, drum and bass. We do have a little toy piano that gives us a melody at one point. We have a synth pad that sits in the background of some of these instruments, panning from one side to the other with small melodic movements. As usual, when I say this stuff, it does have melodic qualities to it, but I don't think it moves fast enough for me to qualify it as a melody, especially since we have the vocal melody here. This doesn't feel like counterpoint as much as it feels more of a foundational or atmospheric aspect, but it does move quicker than some of the other foundational ideas. So kind of sits between both of those worlds of harmony and melody. And then there's the vocals. They're the main idea that sit next to the accompanying bass and drums. That is, for the most part, the song. All of it comes together to create something that is eerie and ominous and unsettling. It leaves me feeling just a little weary of where I am and what is going on. A lot of this comes from the bass and the chords that we get from the instruments that we get them, the synth pad, the toy piano, stuff like this, that the timbres are unsettling, but also the notes themselves are as well. They're unstable, a little bit of dissonance and tension thrown in constantly. Even the resolution to the chord progression still has minor parts of tension baked into it. There is no full release from this. It's what makes it feel eerie every moment of the song. And as I mentioned, it's delivered to us by sounds that, at least to me, feel tense. There's a sharpness to their production. There's an aspect of, I suppose, my biases to these sounds that also lend themselves to ominous moments, ideas of pop culture. A slightly detuned toy piano is something that we hear in pop culture, primarily in horror films. Typically ones that reside around, murdered children, and then they go to like a nursery or something to find some ghost to defeat, and then there's little detuned toy pianos playing the creepy theme music and stuff like that, right? That's the kind of thing that I most associate with that, because it's where that type of sound typically resides in the pop culture conversation. So yeah, personal biases certainly come into that. It's possible that you listen to this song and don't hear those ominous overtones primarily from the timbres of the instruments, because the music, I think, very clearly leans towards that instability and tension in the chord progression itself. But I feel that it's embellished upon and compounded by the sounds of the instruments being used. And this carries over to the vocals as well. I don't quite know how to... There's something about the vocal delivery that feels unsafe. I don't necessarily want to say sinister, but the vocalist does not have my best intentions at mind. Part of it is the whispering. He gets really close to the microphone and whispers right in your ear. And there's a violation of personal space there. That I definitely felt that. But there's also a way that it's a little bit of the way that he moves between notes, the fluidity of almost sliding between some syllables, that feels sinister. Just little hints of it, though. A little bit of elation in those moments, especially as he brings his voice down to do it. It almost feels like a vocal delivery that toes the line between someone who is in control and someone who needs to be in control. And them finding elation in towing that line, understanding the dangers and the unsettling element, the way that they make other people feel and enjoying that. That's kind of what I get out of it. I don't know if that's necessarily intentional. It could be entirely biased. That is where I come at from that, and it just adds on to the creepiness of the track. And then we get to the middle of the song, give or take. It was like 3 minutes in, and we got something a little new. Kind of brought out a little bit of a brighter tone, a brighter sound in general, but also space was introduced. Some of the instruments allowed a little bit more space in their writing. They played less frequently, and then that pushed into the ending where we had more energy. And we reached the peak of basically filling space. We had more vocals come in. We had the layered vocals. The drums were playing eighth notes rather than their spacious pattern. It just becomes noisy. A song that has been up until this point rather minimal, showing us the size of the soundscape and the size of the song, making it feel like it is a small thing in a vast room. There's a lot of empty space throughout most of this track, and at the end they decide to fill it. It begins to feel overwhelming in a way that's not too dissimilar than what post-metal and doom metal tends to do, but in a very different approach to that. I find it fascinating that they achieve it through contrast, having the song run at about a 3 or 4 as far as size for the majority of the track, and then rapidly push that to 10 and max out the space that they have, filling every bit of it. It feels like a rapid onset, overwhelming, panic attack, anxiety, that kind of thing. It's interesting. I think it was well done and well executed. What does any of this mean, though? I don't know. Again, I didn't really get a story with this. It's just, I felt anxious the whole time. It feels eerie. That's not so much a story as it is a tone, and the tone of this song is that for me. But I don't really have a flow through it all. It's interesting to see the ebb and flow. It's interesting to see the highs and lows of this, when ideas come and when ideas go, when the tension heightens and when it diminishes a little bit, but it doesn't really tell me a story as much as forces me to feel this for an extended period of time. Or I should say, it forces me to feel various levels of this tension over this period of time. And so I want to hit the lyrics now. I may come back to some analysis after that, but I kind of want to know what they're singing about and see if that can lend any ideas into what the song is doing. Alright. The title of the track loosely translates to The State of the Country. It is about a country post-trauma. It says, across the scar-faced terrain, slowly disappearing, only phantom pain remains. Scarcely audible, foul laughter seeps out. From the red info box, making some turn quietly in their graves. So, the idea here is that the land has been disfigured, but it's healing, and now all that's left is this lingering phantom pain for the citizens, presumably. There's changes that have been made that have left some of those who have passed on before this happened turning in their graves. They would show disapproval for the state of things as they are. This is followed by the pre-chorus that says, nothing but future ruins, material for the next layer. Thanks to an annotator, I have been pointed in the direction of what this probably means, is this isn't annotated, but something similar about it is annotated later, is a depiction of the angel of history. And I lost that tab. The annotator wrote it in German, as it's a German song. It makes sense it would have German annotators. Or I should say German fans adding context to it. But yeah, there is a poem, I think it was, by a philosopher about the angel of history. The idea here is that all of history, including all of the catastrophic elements that we see sort of in isolation, sometimes with enough distance as a chain of events, the angel just sees as one continuous thing, with each catastrophe being a layer for the next one. That's where this comes from. Nothing but future ruins. What we did today is just going to pave the way for future issues, and just creating material for the next layer. The chorus just repeats the word melancholia over and over and over again, finally saying it floats over the new city and over the land. So there is a depression, a sadness that coats the air of this area. The second verse simply talks about how far-reaching it goes, over the control centers, over the fields of concrete, over the secret net of bunkers, refusing to be wiped out, all this stuff. Finally, once again, we come to a pre-chorus. The new temples are already cracked. What we are building up right now is already destined to be destroyed. Just like everything else before it, future ruins. One day, grass will grow over the city, over its final layer. To me, that reads as if eventually humankind will be wiped out and the planet can heal back again. All of our catastrophes and mistakes over our long lifetime on this planet can be paved over and forgotten as the earth heals itself. The final outro of this track, which could be seen as a bridge or a third verse, however you want to look at it, speaks directly about this angel of history. It says, in the lacerated sky, flown to bits by the jets rehearsing, she hangs with widespread wings. Sleepless and with frozen gaze pointed at rubble behind her, the future piling up. Slowly she flies higher and higher, at last surveys the entire land. What is the lay of the land? There is a lot of nihilism in here, a discontent with not just the way things are, but the way things have been. Seeing a pattern of human history and realizing that the pattern will continue to repeat itself until we're gone. And that's what the song is about. It's about this melancholic wave that washes over and feeling helpless. Feeling helpless for those who came before us and attributing that helplessness to those who will come after. Knowing that they will go through the same cycles you went through because you went through the same cycles your ancestors went through. It's just material for the next layer. So that's not the read I had on the music at all. I find it interesting because I don't really hear this song as melancholic, as depressed, as nihilistic. To me, it still feels eerie, ominous. It is a song that wants to make me feel I don't know, scared? Scared feels like the wrong word, but it's where I keep coming back to. It makes me feel tense. And I think that's what it wants me to do. As if my next step, I have to walk on eggshells as I figure out where that, what I should be doing next. I have to assess everything in my vicinity. I don't feel safe where I am. And that kind of does line up a little bit with the song. The idea that whatever safety we feel today is not going to be here tomorrow. The next catastrophe will happen. But I feel like that's a secondary element, that's subtext to the text. The song itself, lyrically, is just about this melancholic nihilism. A fear for the future stems from that, but is not explicitly stated. So I don't know. Might just be one of those instances where the music and lyrics don't line up perfectly well, but there is some synergy, some parallels between them. But I'm curious if anybody else feels this song differently. As I mentioned multiple times during that, I do have a lot of biases in these sounds, these harmonies, these timbres. I'm definitely introducing some of that, and all those biases do come from primarily American culture. So I'm curious if maybe somebody outside of America reacts to these sounds differently than I do. Those are my thoughts on this track that I'm not going to butcher with the pronunciation. Y'all can see the words in the title of the video though. And as usual, you can find a link to the song in the description if you want to go check it out for yourself. What are your thoughts? Your opinions, your perspectives on this? Toss all that stuff down in the comment section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. It takes you to this menu right here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. Alright, that wraps it up for this one. I do have another video today for this same theme. Dude, you gotta listen to this. Otherwise, I'll be back tomorrow. 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, continuing on with this theme. Dude, you gotta listen. I know I just said it. Yeah, we'll do 2 more of these tomorrow, though. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.